This is the new BMW iX, which is the German luxury automaker's first dedicated electric vehicle. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't share any components nor even a platform with other gas-powered BMWs. And thus, the BMW iX introduces a lot of firsts for the brand. And so with that in mind, is this the electric luxury SUV you should go for? So here in the new BMW iX, so of course yung kanang LED headlights with the daytime running lights up here on top of the headlight units. Then this is the controversial part of the iX, yung kanang huge grille. But over time, I've actually gotten accustomed to appreciate how it looks like. Actually, as a matter of fact, now that I'm seeing the iX in person and driving it on a daily basis, I actually now find the iX to be quite a radical looker. I wouldn't say it's the prettiest thing in the world, but it looks really striking. And basically, the car's gonna draw a lot of stares. Basically, it looks really futuristic, very different compared to other cars out there, especially compared to what BMW does usually with their vehicles. So, being an I vehicle, you have these blue highlights here. Then this hood, by the way, cannot actually open the hood. A certified BMW technician should actually open the hood, pero for some reason, our friends from auto industry were able to open the hood of this car. But if you do open it, it's only gonna show the electrical systems of the vehicle, but nothing much else. This car doesn't have a front trunk. Then you have 21-inch wheels here. This is the base xDrive 40. There's a higher spec version offered that gets 22-inch wheels. This has a 21-inch wheels, which are sa itsura na di halatang 21 inches siya, but they're really massive once you try to explore it deeper sa kanang itsura, you know. So down the sides, the car looks very clean, very minimalist. These are electronic door handles, by the way. They're not mechanical. So when you press it, by the way, it pops out. Then you have soft closed doors, by the way. Then more blue highlights, being a BMW i car. Then once you go to the rear, you're gonna see yung kanang one-piece LED tail light, which actually comes up with a tailgate. So when you open the tailgate, there's another set of tail lights sa kanang carbon fiber frame. Yeah, by the way, the car's partly made out of carbon fiber to minimize weight. And yeah, that's it. That's basically pretty much it in terms of the iX's looks. It's very futuristic. It's gonna be very distinct on the road. If you're gonna see this car sa public road, it's gonna look very distinct. It's gonna look unlike any other SUV out there. So now that we're here inside the new BMW iX, and you're gonna see a revolutionarily different interior compared to what BMW does. So if you're gonna observe my past BMW reviews, no, the 3 Series, the 5 Series, yung mga ganong X7, they all have a familiar and easy to read and easy to master interior, no? So now, in this case, you have a lounge-like interior. It looks really nice. If the outside is medyo controversial in terms of how you're gonna think or how you're gonna perceive the looks of the iX, no? But in the inside, it's universally a nice place to be, and sobrang ganda niya. It's a beautiful lounge-like, sobrang luxurious. The leather that's dyed with olive plant, basically eco-friendly stuff dito sa interior, but at the same time, it's still luxurious. So dominating the dash here is the twin curved displays of the iDrive 8 infotainment system. So the iX is the first electric vehicle, or the first car, by the way, period, of BMW to debut the iDrive 8 infotainment system. But before we get to the iDrive infotainment system, by the way, yun nga, so the interior is lovely. There's this bronze accents here sa interior niya. The supple leather is really soft to the touch. Ang sobrang sarap niya actually hawakan. So lang, I love touching all that stuff. I like the controls, yung kanang seat controls nandito sa pintuan. And then of course you have the electronic door release dito. And then when you start up the car, by the way, since this car is an electric car, when you start it up, ewan ko if the microphone was able to pick that up, but this car has what you call the iconic sounds package. So there are sounds here in this car that were developed by Hans Zimmer, yung movie composer. So like Lion King, yung mga ganong movies, no? So that's Hans Zimmer's work. So he made this magic here in the iX, and yeah, the sounds are really great. We're gonna dive into that later when we drive the car. But yeah, for now, let's now dive into the iDrive 8 infotainment system. It looks beautiful, the interface. It's beautiful. It's very responsive yung kanang iDrive 8 na operating system, no? Very artistic yung kanang layout and all. Ang issue ko lang, however, is that, yes, this is one of the best infotainment systems out there, and I think aesthetically it's the best implementation of iDrive yet. Ang problema ko, however, is, I don't know why BMW did this, but yeah, yung kanang climate controls now have migrated towards a touch screen. So yun nga lang, ang magiging pangat mo lang doon is that it's gonna be more distracting to use since you don't have these physical buttons. You're gonna dive into the, at least okay, the climate, the temperature is readily available, pero yeah, yun lang. You have to dive into the menu para ma-adjust yung other settings. But apart from the climate controls being buried na unfortunately in the touchscreen, at least you can still control iDrive with the rotary knob controller. My favorite interface, by the way, in the industry pa rin. I still prefer using knobs over touchscreens as always. And it's a crystal knob. Yung kanang rotary controller. It's beautifully laid out, beautifully crafted. So yeah, that's iDrive 8 for you. I like the interface. Maganda yung itsura niya. I just don't like the fact that na yung kanyang climate controls are now in the screen, but other than that, Apple CarPlay looks gorgeous. Ang ganda ng tsura ng Apple CarPlay sa kanang wide curved display na to. And that's basically pretty much it in terms of the front part of the BMW iX, and let's now move to the rear seats. So here inside the BMW iX sa kanang rear seats, and as mentioned, this is as long as a BMW X5. So it's a mid-size luxury SUV in that case, and because this is a bespoke electric architecture, this is not shared with other combustion engine BMWs. There's loads of room. I mean, that's an insane amount of legroom, di ba? And because this is a skateboard architecture nga, so all the batteries and the electrical whatever are on the floor. Flat siya, wala kang drivetrain, wala kang drive shaft na kailangan problemahin since electronic lang naman yung connection between the front and the rear axle, yung kanang all-wheel drive system, yung dual motors niya. So, there's tons of room here. It's also genuinely wide enough for 3 adults to fit. So, ang luwag niya. Then, amenities that you get here sa likod ng iX is you have 2 USB-C ports on each front seat. So, you end up with 4 USB-C charging ports. Meron ka ring provision here for BMW accessories like, let's say, a tablet holder or mga ganyan. You have 2-zone climate control sa likod, so that brings it in total to 4-zone climate control if you count the front then. And electronic ang kanang door popper. Of course, you have a mechanical pa rin here if, let's say, the electronics fail or naubos ka ng baterya. So, yeah, it's a lovely place to be here. The Harman Kardon sound system, by the way, the 19-speaker Harman Kardon sound system is worth mentioning here at the back seats. Ang ganda niya. Since talagang dito mo talagang ramdam yung theater feel nung sound system. It's one of the best implementations of the Harman Kardon sound system in all cars. It's really nice.
And then as for cargo space, the BMW iX offers 500 liters, which for a mid-size luxury SUV isn't actually that big. For reference, the equivalently sized X5 will carry around 150 liters more. Folding down the rear seats, however, will provide you with more than 1,700 liters of space. Though unfortunately, BMW's engineers weren't able to squeeze in a front trunk for the iX. As of the moment, the BMW iX is only officially sold in this sole xDrive 40 variant, which means you get a dual motor setup that's good enough for 326 horsepower and 630 Nm of torque on all 4 wheels. Together with the 71 kWh usable battery capacity, the BMW iX xDrive 40 has a WLTP rated range of 425 km. And then as for charging, the iX can support up to 11 kW AC or 150 kW when using DC, which surprisingly compared to the Kia EV6 and Hyundai Ioniq 5, those Korean EVs are able to support up to 350 kW DC. And so with that in mind, how does a BMW iX feel like on the open road?
So we've officially hit the road with the BMW iX, and I've been living with this electric SUV for quite a few days now. And siguro ang magiging first question nyo is if do I have range anxiety with this SUV. As a matter of fact, with yun nga 400 plus kilometers worth of electric range, at least claimed, then in real world mga nasa 390 kilometers or 380 when fully charged to 100%. Actually, no. I don't have range anxiety. And that's because, at least, whenever I take this car out, going to and from Manila and back here to Laguna, sa totoo lang, I plan my trips so well in a sense that hindi ko naging issue yung ano ko baka mabus ang baterya, which is a real problem naman talaga for Filipinos, no, and basically to any electric car owner around the world. But when you know where you're going and when you've planned how you're gonna get there, it's actually not a problem, no. At least luckily for me, kasi I have a Shell DC fast charger nga malapit sa lugar namin, which is in Plaza, no. And if you're gonna buy a BMW iX, you're gonna have a level 2 home charger as standard naman. So that should actually also solve some of your range anxiety issues. And sa lagay na to, wala pa nga akong ganun kasi I don't own this car, of course. This is BMW Philippines' lend out. Out here in the real world, ang experience ko is around mga nasa 390, 380. That's still a lot of range, by the way. 380, 390 kilometers on a full charge. It's long enough for most Filipinos. And speaking of DC fast charging stations and charging period, we've lived this car. We've made a documentary on what's it like to live in an electric car here in the Philippines. So if you want more details about that, especially in terms of the charging stations and the charging standards with electric cars, just click up there in the right-hand corner of the screen. But I digress now. So here out in the open road, the BMW iX performs really well. I am loving this car so much. So being electric, you have no transmission noise, you have no engine noise. Ang super tahimik niya, super refined, super quiet. And then, syempre, being electric, you have that I swear I really love that instant torque, which you're gonna feel even more and appreciate even more once we go later into B roads, mga curvy, twisty roads, no? But here out on the highway pala, I'm enjoying this car so much, actually. And there's also the part then na this car is supremely refined. So, yun nga, wala ka ng powertrain noises whatsoever. Ano pang syempre gagawin ng BMW to minimize the other noises? So, syempre they're gonna add even more sound insulation to make the car quieter on all aspects. So, road noise, wind noise, that's almost completely gone here. I find this car even more refined pa nga than the BMW 7 Series I drove a year ago. This is on another level in terms of refinement. I always say electric cars are quiet, but here with the iX now with its bespoke electric platform that isn't shared with other combustion engine BMWs, ang super quiet niya, ang super refined, super rigid na kind of carbon fiber aluminum structure. I'm loving this car so much. And we also have to mention yung kanang one pedal driving, no. So like the Nissan Kicks e-Power that I drove prior to this car, meron yung diba, yung the one pedal driving kanang e-pedal. So the iX also has that. And it's even stronger pa nga yung kanang one pedal driving dito sa iX. And to a point that actually brings you to a full stop. Ganun katapang yung kanang regenerative braking, no. So it's really useful downhill. As a matter of fact, going down Tagaytay with this car, kayang-kaya siya ng kaya niyang bawiin mga 5 to 10% of your battery actually when you cruise down Tagaytay nang nakabukas yung brake region mo. Really, really good. And it's also worth mentioning, by the way, na yung kanyang brakes, despite having that region braking as typical of electrified cars, no, I like how the brakes in the iX feel, no. They feel so natural, they feel so normal, as a matter of fact, no, walang learning curve whatsoever dito. It feels really good. Suspension's really good. It feels very typical of a German car. It feels stable, it feels refined, and I'm really loving this iX, no, on a refinement perspective. It's one of the most refined cars, period, that I've ever driven. I love this car so much. And now that we're on to twisty roads, mga ganitong mga B roads, mga twist roads, and syempre being a BMW, you expect this iX to, siguro baka may sportiness siya. And actually, there is. It's still a sporty SUV, no? So I swear sobrang addicting nung kanang instant torque from the electric motors. Here in the iX, now that you have 300 plus horsepower and 600 plus Newton meters of torque, yung instant torque na yun is even more fun. Huh? Yeah, by the way, as mentioned kanina, 0 to 100 kph takes just 6 seconds. Ganun kabilis lang yung kanang 0 to 100 speed. But being kasi you're electric, ang addicting niya, it feels faster than what the 6 seconds suggests kanang acceleration time from 0 to 100 kph nga. It really feels blisteringly quick. Instantaneous torque, instantaneous response, and Of course, with electric cars, andun na yung degree of sportiness ka due to the responsiveness ng kanang powertrain, di ba? No? Electric powertrain niya. But yung fun behind the wheel of the iX also comes from the fact na it's actually a fun to drive car through the twisties. So, in terms of steering feel, there's not a lot of feedback actually. There's not a lot of road feel going through the steering wheel of the iX. Mas may road feel pa yung mga other combustion engine cars ng BMW based on my experience. But it feels responsive naman, no? So, there's a typical responsiveness pa rin of the BMW steering. Ang kanang reflexes ng kanang steering are very maliksi. We're gonna go through some corners and we're gonna throw this 2-ton SUV. Nga lang, this is a heavy SUV being electric with all that batteries and stuff. It's a heavy SUV, but yun nga, as you go through these twisties, because of that low center of gravity provided nga by the batteries being on the floor, it's glowing onto the road really well. And with the X-Drive all-wheel drive system nga nitong kotse na to, this is a dual motor by the way, so front and rear electric motors. Typical BMW tuning, so it's rear biased. Kaya you have this feeling pa rin na when you put down your foot sa kanang throttle, I was supposed to say gas pedal, but this is a gas-powered car. When you put your foot sa kanang throttle, there's this feeling that it can rotate. There's a rotational feeling, but it's no sports sedan, but for an SUV, this heavy and this top heavy, it's pretty good in terms of handling. And then of course, you have to mention as well yung kanyang iconic sounds, diba? So as mentioned kanina, you have the iconic sounds that was developed by Hans Zimmer. So dito mo siya mas ma-appreciate when you're in B-road. So mas rinig mo siya ngayon, especially when it's in sport mode. So when you put your foot down and accelerate or even just overtake other cars, talagang you're gonna appreciate those sounds, no, that were composed by Hans Zimmer. Overtake na natin to L300. Grabe, this car is glowing onto the road really well actually. And itong B-roads na to sa lugar ko, dito sa Laguna, they're not exactly the smoothest kasi hindi man siya aspalto. So when I go through here with other cars, I can hear a lot of mga small vibrations and stuff. But itong chassis ng iX just so rigid. So as mentioned nga, it's partly carbon fiber, partly aluminum, whatever, ganyan. Yung nga lang, despite that, still a heavy car because of all that battery stuff niya. But still, as a result of that then, having the carbon fiber chassis, it is extra rigid. So even if you go through these roads nang ito nga hindi nga ganun ka-smooth, normally would feel some flexing and stuff, but this feels rock solid. I like it when cars feel rock solid, typical German stuff. But yun nga, being carbon fiber, talagang mas bato pa yung pakiramdam niya eh. It feels more dense. But I mean, not dense in a way na ang bigat niya, but dense in a way na pag suntok mo yung katawan ng kotse, alam mong ang tigas pa rin niya. Like parang there's no shaky feeling whatsoever. It's really good. I like the structure of this iX. And especially because of the batteries nga being the floor itself of this iX, no? Ang extra rigid ng pakiramdam ng sahig, no? So, hindi siya yung ma-shake, maalog. It feels really great. I like that feeling. And I also love the tuning of this car's throttle pedal kasi being electric nga, so syempre, it's easy to get carried away sa kanang acceleration, di ba? And kanang responsiveness. But it's well-tuned din kanang throttle, no? But if you put it in sport mode, and gusto mo talaga yung pag the moment mapa ka sa throttle niya, ay may suntok talaga agad kang mararamdaman mula sa kanang electric motors. Talagang it's gonna push you back to your seat. You can do that in sport mode. Actually, in normal mode pa lang may ganun na eh. But in sport mode, it's even more pronounced yung ganong feeling. I've driven GTRs, I've driven supercars like that. But dito sa iX, as instantaneous ang response. It's really addicting. If it's gonna be especially your first time driving an electric car with this much performance.
If you're interested in owning the BMW iX, pricing as of the moment is only available upon request. But back when it was launched, the iX X-Drive 40 retailed for a little under 6.3 million pesos. And that's of course before the executive order removing tariffs on electric vehicles. Apart from the aforementioned features in this review, the iX X-Drive 40 also comes with a suite of advanced driver assistance tech, which includes automatic emergency braking, adaptive LED headlights, lane departure warning, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic alert, but no adaptive cruise control. We usually comment on BMW's lack of driver assistance tech here in the Philippines, but here in the iX, it's at least a good step forward for the brand, especially when you consider the fact that a much more affordable Honda Civic gets a full set of advanced driver assistance tech as standard. Nevertheless, the BMW iX introduces a lot of firsts for the BMW brand, especially in terms of aesthetics, as well as in-car technology. Of course, being fun to drive and blisteringly quick also helps. And in addition to that, the BMW iX's bespoke electric car architecture makes it feel much more modern and more high-tech compared to the Audi e-Tron SUV that's based on a car with an internal combustion engine, hence its packaging and range compromises.
Lay my ass on the bench, now that this is all the commence. I'm to the spot, lay my ass on the bench.